Joining us now, Jackie Turner. She's the executive director of the Mississippi Department of Employment Security, and Timothy Rush, the director of unemployment insurance. Good morning to the both of you.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here today. So, you've compressed several years of activity into about 3 months, haven't you?
We really have. Before the pandemic hit, we were averaging a little 1,000 to 1,500 claims a week, and I have those statistics in front of me. That since the middle of March, we have done 339,500 approximately claims filed with us. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Timothy, how are the systems holding up at this point that process all these claims?
I think the systems is holding up much better than our people. Our staff have
Didn't mean to leave them out of the equation. IT guy, so I'm always thinking about computers.
Yeah, systems are holding up pretty good. We're doing some upgrades, which are normal.
Yeah.
But systems are holding up well.
And people, how are the people?
People are needing revival.
Yeah.
Need a little rest, so we're trying to do some alternate staffing shifts so we can have some time off. Hopefully, upcoming holiday, it's nearer to us than most people, the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at maybe having callback assist the system to take calls and appointments and give some of the people some time off.
Jackie, did you bring on additional staff, or did you outsource or subcontract any of the processing work?
All of the above.
All the above. You're not. I mean, you guys aren't staffed for that.
Well, and when the economy's good, the unemployment insurance programs have less staff.
Sure.
That's just the way the program works, as it should. But then all of a sudden, the pandemic hits, and we had to bring on additional staff. We got special funding from Department of Labor, so we have brought on additional staff, additional temporary workers, retirees. We borrowed help. We have some contractual relationships with a few entities as well to help us through this workload. So,
I mean, in the span of literally a couple of weeks, we went from amongst our lowest unemployment ever, 5.5%, 6%, I think, nationwide. It was around 4%, to all of a sudden 18, 20%, somewhere in that range. I haven't seen the data specifically on Mississippi, but 15, 16. Yeah.
Ours was right at 4.95 to 5.2%.
Okay.
And then we're in June now. For the month of April, it was, I believe, 15 point
okay.
something percent, and we are anxiously awaiting the unemployment rate to come out for May, and that will be released on Friday.
Yeah. And there are some economists who actually project that June could be the biggest month ever in terms of job creation, new jobs created. I've seen that figure. Of course, May, the data there, totally shocked everybody when there was an expectation of loss of some 9 million jobs nationwide, and we ended up creating 2.5 million, which was, I think we're all sort of tired of experts, shall we say, who keep trying to forecast and project into something that there just is no template for. There's no history for, which even makes it more difficult for prognostication, as they say. But hopefully we will continue to create jobs and see a decline in the need for unemployment.
Yes, absolutely. Ingalls, they have not shut down the entire time. They are hiring.
Really?
They contacted me and said, help us. We have job fairs with them.
Really?
They have done virtual job fairs, and
largest employer, I believe, in the state, right?
Never shut down and needs employees. So there are companies such as that never shut down. And then we have the issue, of course, of some companies experiencing people not wanting to return to work because the idea of receiving an additional $600 in unemployment that was given to the states through the CARES Act seems attractive, but that money will end soon.
End of July, correct?
End of July.
And so reports suggest, Timothy, that 68% of those receiving unemployment benefits are receiving more in benefits than their pay, than their wages. and I think some 20% are receiving as much as 200% of their lost earnings. So it's kind of a twisted sort of situation, but it's very temporary, and the idea was to get money out as quick as possible. And it's impossible to try to figure out, as you normally would, every single situation and how much should go. So the federal government just said, here's $600 and a week additional. The standard, share that with our listeners, Timothy, the unemployment benefits without the federal $600 kicker, what are those in the state of Mississippi?
The maximum amount is $235. The minimum amount is
per week.
Per week. The minimum amount is $30 a week. The average benefit amount is about $212 a week. Under the CARES Act, there's a group of individuals who are not normally entitled to benefits. Those are people who are part of the gig economy, those who are self-employed, and then the Fed has a formula to determine how much they would qualify for.
Yeah.
And for that, the minimum would be $106, and the maximum would be $235. And that money usually comes from the trust fund. For those who are not entitled to regular benefits, who are part of the gig economy, self-employed, that comes from the federal fund.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about $235 from the trust fund plus an additional $600 a week. So
$835.
$835
per week.
Per week.
Yeah. So, and as I recall, when initially reviewing the CARES Act, if an applicant qualifies for just $1 of unemployment benefits at the state level, they're entitled to the $600 federal kicker.
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
Where's my check? I keep waiting. Where's my check?
You got to work.
Oh,
you got to keep me straight.
Back to that essential thing.
I know. You're essential. Very essential. Want you to know that. We appreciate that. So let's turn our attention to something that I know, Jackie, you were on the briefing, on the press briefing with the governor. Was it Monday of this week, I think? I'm losing
my days, too. I think it was Tuesday.
Was it Tuesday? Okay. Well, whenever you joined the governor, and we're talking about fraud, which, of course, is a problem, and it is even more pronounced because we're trying to get this money out as quick as possible, so you don't have as much time to vet the applications and to review their legitimacy. What's going on there? Exactly. How are you doing as far as combating fraud, and what actions you're taking, and what are you discovering, and what do you recommend?
Well, like you said, when you are trying to get out this volume of funding to a large number of people at one time, there is always the fraud part of that comes along with people who are intending to do bad and get money when they're not entitled to it. They can be individuals, or it can be a ring, an organized crime ring, and we are not immune to that in Mississippi. As others, if you read the news and see other unemployment insurance agencies across the nation, this is a problem that exists. It exists in the normal times, and it certainly exists now during this pandemic. In the last 3 weeks, I would say we have seen a surge in individuals or entities telling us that there has been some fraudulent activity on their accounts. Mm-hmm. We are working with, as Mr. Hurst indicated, and on the press conference on Tuesday, we're working with...
That'd be U.S. Attorney Mike Hurst.
It would be U.S. Attorney Mike Hurst, and we early on reached out. Of course, we work with OIG all of the time, but we early on reached out and had a initial phone call with many enforcement agencies, and they are organized and working with us to identify areas of potential fraud and to investigate it, and like Mr. Hurst said, and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. At Employment Security, there are many measures in place to prevent fraud on the front end, But once fraud is reported to us through SAFE, SAFE, at mds.ms.gov, we begin the process of stopping the claim and then asking the individual to do necessary paperwork to get their identity protected.
Gotcha. Can you guys hang with us for another segment? We've got Jackie Turner and Timothy Rush from the Mississippi Department of Employment Security. We'll be back on the Gallo Show, SuperTalk, Mississippi. But in the studio, we've got Jackie Turner and Timothy Rush from the Mississippi Department of Employment Security. We're talking about something that, frankly, we'd like to talk less about, but we got to face the facts of reality amidst the pandemic, and that's unemployment. So unemployment fraud. We were, Jackie, when we took a break, we were talking about actions taken there and recommendations for our citizens. I wanted to share with our listeners, you guys are well aware, but the state of Washington seems to be the hardest hit of the states with respect to unemployment fraud. Some 190,000 cases have defrauded the state out of 650. They estimate $550 to $650 million, and the state has recovered through various means $333 million of that. And wanted to share with the listeners that one of the primary ways that this fraud even occurs, when you see these big breaches of corporations where hackers will seize data from and penetrate these systems, and they'll seize data, in particular Social Security numbers, such as the big Equifax breach that occurred. Target, many people recall, may or may not had Social Security numbers there, but you don't know what kind of credit reporting information they could have had stored. Nonetheless, your Social Security number floats around all over the place digitally. Hackers know that. A lot of these guys come out of the Ukraine. Tried to buy a security company over in the Ukraine a few years ago, as a matter of fact, was unsuccessful at that. But these are very sophisticated professionals. They breach these systems. They then sell these to organized crime syndicates, mainly in Africa, West Africa, who then commit the fraud. Mm-hmm. And it's a money-making, it's kind of modern-day digital mafia is kind of one way to look at it. And there's about $8 billion a year defrauded from the federal government in the form of fictitious tax returns filed with the IRS. And folks will file their tax return. The IRS says, we already got your return. We sent you a refund. Well, no, that wasn't me. And it's because somebody's gone and figured out and made up a tax. That's how sophisticated they are. Point is, the bad guys are out there. Cybersecurity is a problem. Now it's a problem in unemployment. Don't know that that's ever been a problem before, has it? I mean, maybe on a smaller scale. But
smaller scale, and in particular when we had our sister pandemic situation with Hurricane Katrina, which we now think was just a small test to what has come this year. But we had an elevated amount of fraud after Hurricane Katrina. But some fraud is a normal part of doing business in the unemployment program. But like you described, the bad actors, the fraudulent schemes worldwide are the ones that scare us more than the one-offs. But I talked about this on the press conference, but employment security has very little information about a person because of the unemployment, the employer tax records that come into us. So if someone's going to make a fraudulent claim or an organized unit, they have to have more information than what we have available at our agency. Yeah. So I was talking in particular about protecting your information. Of course, there are the security breaches and all that you talked about, but on social media as well. And when you do have a fraudulent claim against you for unemployment and you send it to us to stop it, it is also important for people to follow up and do the other parts of that by filing reports with their local police departments and all, so that they can get all of that, filing affidavits and get all of your personal information protected in a larger scale than just the unemployment part of it.
Yeah, so you guys are dealing with a lot of private information, Timothy. So you have some responsibility there, and you take that very seriously.
Absolutely.
And you got a lot more volume coming in, and as you guys know, we've heard lots of folks that certainly at first complaining about the delay and the time it was taking to get their applications processed, or even somebody on the phone. How are you doing on that now?
The processing is much better now. We've gotten people trained, making adjustments with phone systems to schedule callbacks rather than waiting on the phone so long they can call back for an appointment. It was very difficult initially with new people, vetting them. And
just not ready.
Not ready.
Not staffed up for that, honestly, and hopefully never have to be again. But, I'll say, just as a citizen, I know you guys have worked your rears off on doing all this, and your staff in particular, and gratitude to them. I know it's frustrating for people out there, and we understand that. But thanks so much for your service. Thanks for coming in on the studio today.